Okay, so if you've ever tried to learn German, you've definitely run into this wall. The three genders: masculine, feminine, neuter. It can feel completely random, like an impossible code. But what if I told you it's not random at all? It's actually a puzzle, and today we are going to find all the clues to solve it together.
And we have to kick things off with the one question that just breaks everyone's brain. A girl is neuter, right? How on earth does that make any sense? Well, stick around because by the end of this, you are going to know the exact reason why. You know, for native speakers, this stuff is just second nature. It's not about logic. A dog just feels masculine, and a cat just feels feminine. Why? Because the language itself wires their brains that way. And that's our first huge clue. We are dealing with grammatical gender, not biological gender. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the puzzle itself. Then, we'll dive in and crack the codes for der, die, and das, one by one. And, of course, we'll finish up with all the weird exceptions that keep things, well, interesting. Okay, so here's the fundamental thing you have to get your head around. In German, every single noun, and I mean everything, from a person to a rock to an idea, gets assigned a gender. A table might be masculine, a fork could be feminine. It doesn't always follow the kind of logic we might expect. And here they are, the three main characters in our story. You've got der for masculine nouns, die for feminine, and das for neuter. Your mission, really, is to figure out which article goes with which noun. So, let's start cracking that code.
All right, first up is der. Now, while you can't just guess every single time, there are some really strong patterns that'll point you in the right direction. Let's start with the first set of clues, the word endings.
So if you spot a noun that ends in ling, ismus, or, there is a very good chance it's a masculine der word. You know, like der Lehrer for teacher or der Motor for motor. Spotting these endings is honestly your first big shortcut to getting it right. But it's not just about the endings. You can also find clues in the meaning of the word itself. Whole categories of nouns are pretty much always masculine. Male people like der Vater, the father, that's an obvious one. But what's less obvious is that all days, months, and seasons are masculine too. Same goes for compass directions, car brands, and most alcoholic drinks. Though, fun fact, the big exception there is das Bier, the beer.
Okay, let's move on to die and see how these patterns build on each other. And this is actually great news for learners, because the rules for feminine nouns are even more reliable.
Now this is where it gets really good, because the endings for feminine nouns are incredibly reliable. Seriously, if you spot a word ending in heit, kite, schaft, or you can be almost 100% certain it's feminine. These endings are basically a cheat code. You see a word like Freundschaft or Zeitung, you instantly know it's die.
And just like we saw with der, entire categories of words tend to be feminine. Female people and professions, die Mutter, the mother, of course, but also, get this, motorcycle brands, the names of ships and planes, and cardinal numbers like 1 and 3. So it's pretty funny, while cars are masculine, a Harley is feminine.
Okay, you're going to want to remember this one. It's a game changer. About 90% of all German nouns that end in the letter E are feminine. Die Lampe, the lamp. Die Straße, the street. It's not a perfect rule, but as a guideline, it is incredibly powerful. All right, time for our final article, das, which is for all the neuter nouns. And this is where we finally get the answer to that puzzle from the beginning about das Mädchen.
So, check this out. Two little word endings are basically a dead giveaway for das, chen and line. These are called diminutives. They make things smaller or cuter, and they are the key to our whole puzzle. Any noun ending with these is automatically neuter. Other endings like ment and are also really strong clues.
And does also pops up in some other really interesting places. When you take a verb like essen, which means to eat, and turn it into a noun, it becomes das Essen, the food or the act of eating. The same thing happens with colors, most metals, and a lot of collective nouns that start with that ge prefix, like das Gemüse, the vegetables.
And drumroll please, this is how we solve the mystery of das Mädchen. The word Mädchen actually comes from Magd, which is an old word for a maid. That Mädchen ending is a diminutive, so it turns the word into little maid. And here is the absolute most crucial part. The diminutive rule is king. It overrides biological gender every single time and makes the noun neuter. And that is why it's das Mädchen. Puzzle solved. Okay, so we have the rules. But you know there have to be exceptions, right? Of course! No language code would be complete without a few quirks. So now that we've got the main rules down, let's look at the plot twists that make German grammar so unique.
Remember that awesome 90% rule for words ending in E? Well, here's a peek at the other 10%. Words like der Junge, the boy, and das Auge, the eye, are famous exceptions. This just goes to show that while the rules are a huge help, you've always got to be on the lookout. Now this is where it gets really wild. Sometimes, just changing the article completely changes what the word means. Der See is a lake, but die See is the sea, and the word bond can mean a book volume, a music group, or a piece of ribbon, all depending on whether you use der, die, or das. It's the ultimate proof that the article and the noun are one single package deal.
And as if that wasn't enough, just to keep you on your toes, there are some words that can happily take two different genders. You can say der Logo or das Logo, and you'd be correct either way. They're pretty rare, but they are out there.
So after all that, what should you actually do? Here's a simple, practical toolkit. Number 1, always learn the noun and its article together. Never just learn Hund, always learn der Hund. 2, train your brain to spot those super reliable endings. And 3, get a little creative. If der Stuhl is a chair, picture it as a male chair, maybe with a mustache. I know it sounds silly, but trust me, these weird mental images really work.
Look, at the end of the day, this isn't really about memorizing giant, boring lists. It's about learning to see the patterns. Once you start spotting these clues, you're not just learning grammar anymore. You're actually unlocking a much deeper level of the language. It's a challenge, for sure, but the reward is huge.
But I want to leave you with something really important, a reassuring thought. While getting the genders right is great for speaking correct German, the real goal is always just communication. If you mess up and use the wrong article, people are still going to understand you. So please, don't let the fear of making a mistake stop you from speaking.
So, we're back where we started. Der, die, das. Does it really matter? Well, for being grammatically perfect, yeah, it absolutely does. But for making a connection, for being understood, it's just one piece of a much bigger, more beautiful puzzle. So keep learning, keep speaking, and don't sweat the small stuff. Because in German, even a girl can be a das.